Welcome back to another episode of Lost in the Farmer's Market, where today we're talking about this lovely specimen back here. This is corn. Scientific name Zea maize. Variety Indorata. Specific variety Glass Gem. Corn. Now, corn is in the Poaceae family, which means it is the true grass family. And, it looks like grass. Flowers are all at the tips. Um, the female parts are actually the corns. Yeah. Now, the name Zea is from ancient Greek, and I think that's pronounced. It's the word ancient Greek word is Zeai. Zea. It's a reference to spelt or coarse wheat. Maize is a Taino word. Now, by the way, the Taino were the indigenous people who were virtually eradicated by colonialism and things put in motion by Columbus. Not a great guy. Anyway, it's the Taino word mahiz or mejes, which turned to maize by the Spanish. Then eventually, at some point, an E got put on and became the maize we know, and henceforth maize, M-A-Y-S. Now, corn was originally native to Mexico, and this particular variety was created in the 1980s by a guy named Carl Leon Barnes. Specific selection. Now, corn is considered is you can grow it in zones 2A through 11B, but it's considered an annual because once it produces its corn, it's effectively done. And usually, you might get a cob of corn or two from an individual plant, and then that's it. Its soil pH preference is 6.0 to 8.0, and it prefers full sun, which it's getting here. Its height can be 5 to 8 feet, and mine are about 4, but they've been grown in a container, which was meant as an experiment of sorts. I'll explain in a moment. Now, of course, the width per plant, because of big leaves, can be 1 to 2 feet, and you can really pack them in, which is what you're encouraged to do. See, corn has heavy pollen that doesn't travel far, and the problem with that is that it has to drift down to the female parts. So, I'm going to point this out. So, up top, that right there, that tufty thing in the back, that's the male flowers. And they create pollen and it drifts all the way down to here, where the actual corns are. And that silk that's hanging out, each individual the pollen has to reach those silks where they do the fertilization, and that's how the corn cob is built, basically. Each individual kernel on the cob is an individual ovary that has to be pollinated. So if you grow corn and you get weird, spotty, irregular, it's because they weren't dense enough and the pollen wasn't transferring enough. And corn pollen doesn't travel very far. It's kind of heavy, and corn relies on wind pollination, like a lot more things than you'd think. And so it can be problematic, which is why we plant them in blocks, in rows. We plant them dense in rows so the pollen's more likely to transfer. That's why you have to do at least 2 or 3 rows, or in this case, plant them right on top of each other in a pot so that they can pollinate themselves. Now, despite being considered an ornamental, glass gem corn is a type of flint corn. Now, flint corn is typically used for things like popcorn and ground flour. Flint corn, again, is typically left to fully mature and dry in the field, which is this guy over here and that guy over there. Or after I'm done with this, I'm going to pick those because they're about done. You want to get them when the silks have turned brown because that's when, more likely than not, the kernels inside are ready to go. The hard kernels, as I said, are ground into cornmeal or can be used as popcorn, the traditional type. You can't eat flint corn fresh because it's hard. Well, you could if you didn't value your teeth, but because, there's always some guy out there who's going to hear this and go, hold my beer. Anyway, flint corn has a low water content, making it more freeze resistant than most corns, which there's an entire incident that happened where the only crop that survived somewhere in the New England states was flint corn because it was able to withstand the cold. Now, flint corn and corn in general was domesticated about 9,000 years ago. Most flint corn is multicolored. Glass gem is no different in that regard. However, glass gem is known for having semi-translucent kernels which look like little glass beads. The first cob I've picked off this grouping, which came from over here, you can kind of see where I took it off, was all red. I can't wait to see what colors the rest are. Now, I should point out popcorn itself is a variant of flint corn. Hominy is also is made from a type of flint corn. So you've had them before. Probably flint corn is used in grits, actually. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, the kernels themselves are what's called a caryopsis, a dry, one-seeded fruit, aka grain, which, in that case, would probably include wheat and so forth. So that's corn in a nutshell for you folks. This is the first time we've grown it in the test gardens, and of course we went whole hog on growing one of the prettiest semi-ornamentals we could, because why the heck not? So if you have any questions about growing corn or any thoughts about that, by the way, I should point out corn is water heavy, water intensive, requires a decent amount of water per day, if not per week, And since most farms are actually reliant on rain, corn can be pretty interesting to maintain. There's also an interesting condition I forgot to mention called the corn sweats. And the corn sweats come from the sheer amount of humidity that pass through corn via evapotranspiration, which is when corn gets watered, sucks up the water, and and vents out the leftover moisture into the atmosphere, causing a pocket of intense humidity that can, when you're talking acreage, mess with the weather pattern. Yeah, just think. People are looking for weather control devices in the government, and it turns out it's multiple acres of corn doing it. Go figure. So, as I was saying, if you have any questions or thoughts, please leave them in the comments section. The blog is updating. And as always, folks, keep them growing, and thanks for watching.